Hello and welcome to my RWBY Volume 1 review. This review is going to be a little bit more laid back than my previous review, where I covered RWBY Amity Arena, but we are still going to cover things from a list in sections. The first category we're going to cover is characters, plot, and then we're going to cover world building. These should get me a general feel and get you guys a general feel of the first volume. So with that, we should go ahead and begin here with the first segment. The Volume 1 plot as a whole really kind of works well in the first half. The first half works really well. After Players and Pieces, though, Chapter 8, it falls apart, like, really fast. It just immediately, once we get into the Badge and the Bird, and both parts are that, it's just apart into a million pieces, like my heart after Volume 3. And me right now, because I'm super nervous about recording this. But with that, how the first half of Volume 1's plot is structured really helps. The trailers do wonders for the plot to start off, but they also mislead a little bit as well. We're given this look at a really dark, action-packed story, and we don't get that. The red trailer, the white trailer, the black trailer, and the yellow trailer show this really deep plot with a lot of action, and in Volume 1, we don't get that. The best fight in Volume 1 is the Nevermore fight in Players and Pieces. And that's really the only good fight. I mean, Volume 1 trailers have some good moments in them, but again, like I said, they mislead. On top of this, we also have, like, the fact that those trailers don't address the conflicts, even though they express a darker theme. But once we get into the conflicts in Volume 1, they're really minuscule. The dealings with Roman, we only see Roman twice interacting with the main characters. And any other time we see him, it's just this brief little thing that's thrown at the end of an episode to kind of make people, believe that there's something sinister going on. And while it's okay, it just doesn't really work to make me care about the conflict. Now, on top of the conflicts that we have the second half of the volume where we kind of get into the Badge and the Burden, and that conflict with Ruby and Weiss just ends like that. It takes not very long for that to end. And I don't know why they decided to resolve this super fast. I understand the show had a really low budget in the start, and that's fair. But they could have drawn that out an episode longer or something like that. Or made it so that they occasionally had some problems getting along. This would have been nice. But another thing is they decided to draw out the conflict that John had. I guess his arc. You could call it a John arc.
God damn it, Barb!
Okay, no. And it really, that should not have been an arc that we had was had in this volume. Or if anything, it should have just been one episode. And it really didn't do much to add to the plot. It just kind of developed some of the characters a little bit better, but half of Team Juniper kind of didn't really do a whole lot. And that's where we get into the characters for Volume 1. As a little bit of a side note, since I forgot, the little conflict with Blake and Weiss at the end, I feel relatively the same about. It kind of doesn't add a whole lot, plus Weiss gets over herself real fast. She stops being the little brat she is. She gets over it real fast, like she does with the Badge and the Burden. She gets over that too fast for my liking, and it gets derailed by the fight with Roman, and so that one really kind of sucks as well, because it not only was it really short, but it also got derailed by the main conflict. They tried to put two conflicts intersecting with each other, and it just didn't work very well. So with that, let's actually move on to the characters.
I couldn't take it, couldn't stand another minute. Couldn't bear another day without you in it. All of the joy that I had.
The characters in the show are actually really good. The problem is that a few of them kind of just sit around and don't do a whole lot. But I'm going to go through and kind of rapid fire explain some of the characters and kind of my thoughts on them. So prepare for that. We'll start with Team RWBY. RWBY, she's actually my favorite character in this volume. She is really good, at expressing her emotions of being this really socially awkward person at a new school, which I can relate to. But she does really well in trying to handle the conflict with Weiss. It's just Weiss gets over it too fast and doesn't give RWBY any time to actually develop. And with that, we go on to Weiss. Weiss is a snobby little brat. I like her. She's actually my second favorite character in this volume, but she's a snobby little brat. So with that, she kind of gets over it as well really fast with both RWBY and Blake. And it's not good. And I wish that they would have drawn the conflicts out a little bit longer to kind of give the characters chances to develop a little more. And with underdeveloped characters in this volume, we'll go on to Blake. She doesn't really do a whole lot. She kind of is the quiet one, sits there, doesn't open up to people. The only time she kind of opens up, barely to Sun, and then also doesn't really open up with Weiss during their conflicts that they have. And it kind of just ends with Weiss being like, I don't care, and she doesn't give Blake any time to talk or work through this. And a character that doesn't talk a lot, Yang. She is there. That's all I can really say. I mean, she is a good character from what we saw in the yellow trailer, and honestly is actually a decent character going into later volumes, but she doesn't do a whole lot in this volume, and I don't know. Maybe they didn't want to flesh out character arcs for all of Team RWBY in the first volume, and then they're going to work on, they planned on working on the characters later, which they kind of did. They did really work on, that later on, but they didn't work on Team RWBY a whole lot in Volume 1. But now, move on to Team Juniper. John is kind of a more cringy clone of the socially awkward team leader we got with RWBY. And his arc that he had with Carden and all that, he doesn't really develop at all in it. He kind of gets this false sense of hope when Pyrrha helps him out, and he doesn't really develop from that, and they spent 4 episodes on it just for him to not develop and to think he did good. And I don't like that with that. But I mean, hey, they probably could have done worse. And next to Nora, she kinda sits around, but I'd be careful, she'll break your legs.
We'll break his legs!
Also, don't let her around any syrup. Dear God, it'll be all gone faster than you can even notice.
Ren made pancakes. No syrup, though. You can thank Nora for that.
But honestly, besides sitting around, she is a decent character and she gets developed later on. And now we move on to Pyrrha, who is actually a really good character, and honestly probably the best character on Team Juniper in Volume 1 because of how well she does. She, helps John out, and that's really good that she stepped up to help Team Leader when he was struggling. And also we have Ren. He again kind of sits around and doesn't do a whole lot. He makes pancakes, which Nora probably ate all of them before they could even realize the pancakes were done. But with that, those are the two main teams. I'm going to move on to Ozpin next. Ozpin is basically just a shady motherfucker. He doesn't really let out a whole lot of what he needs to. The characters aren't able to, progress and know any. They don't get to know anything that would be useful because he hides everything. And this gets way worse in later volumes. So, besides being a shady motherfucker, he probably isn't the best character. We'll say the voice work for him is really nicely done there. But besides that, he's an okay character, just a shady motherfucker. Roman now. Oh boy, Roman. He's supposed to be the big bad for this volume, and he's hardly that. Honestly, he got what he deserved in volume 3. But with that, I mean, he just really wasn't a great big bad. And honestly, we probably could have done without a whole lot of the conflict with him, or we could have done with better conflict. He only encountered the main characters twice, and both those encounters weren't even really a complete encounter because they didn't have all of the main characters involved. So, with that, we're going to move on to some, I guess, other antagonists, I guess they wanted to play this out as. Team Cardinal, I'm just going to go through them all as one group, because I feel the same about them. I feel they could have probably focused on them less. It kind of feels like this conflict that John and Cardin had was a last-minute thing added to kind of flesh out the other characters. And also, Cardin messing with Velvet and bullying her, and that could have probably waited until after they had explained more about the Faunus and other sorts of things. But speaking of explaining the Faunus and world building, we're going to move on to that section.
Come at me, and you'll see I'm more than meets the eye. You think that you'll break me, you're gonna find in time.
A bit here is based on world building. The world building in Volume 1 is actually pretty good. It just actually does pretty well for the low budget that they had, and one of the things that really shows that they had a low budget was the Shadow People, which I actually thought was a nice touch to the show. And it was just one of those things that fit well with the art style, and I liked it, so I'm not complaining about that. I'm glad that it changed for the future, because it definitely wouldn't have worked with the art style in Maya. Definitely Imposer. But one of the things is with the world building is we kind of get a little bit of Remnant's history, because this is the world of Remnant. There's a series later on called The World of Remnant, which got uploaded sometimes in place of the actual main series RWBY. That goes in depth, but in Volume 1, all we really got was a bit of story detailing at the start, before any characters were introduced, besides the trailers, of course. We got that. Besides that, there wasn't a whole lot. We got to see more of Vale besides Chapter 1, so that's a thing. And while we didn't get to see a whole lot of the culture, the people, because of course they were Shadow People, it still felt pretty alive. It was more alive in Volume 2, of course. But speaking of being alive, the people of Remnant have, or in semblance, of course, you probably know, don't know why I'm saying that, but aura and semblances kinda get explained, but not really. Pyrrha goes through this whole thing where she tries to explain it, but it's nothing new we haven't heard before or seen before. While it's quotable, it doesn't say anything new. And honestly, with that, there's all there really is to the world building in this show. We don't, well, for Volume 1 at least, we don't get a whole lot, but also what we do get is okay, actually. Besides that little speech Pyrrha has, where we already kind of knew about that. But that's besides the point. And I think with that, I'm going to conclude my review here. I kind of overall, if I were to rate this show on a scale of 1 to 10, I would probably give it a 6 out of 10. Simply because it does what it needs to do, but it doesn't do it extremely well. And with that, I want to say thank you for watching. You can go ahead and, if you want, these are going to be a weekly thing until I've gone through all 5 volumes. So if you want to keep watching my volume reviews, you can go ahead and subscribe and follow me on Twitter to know when I'm going to post these videos so that you can keep up to date. And with that, again, thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.